So I had a 2262 code for the seatbelt. Let's see if I can get this computer to fire back up. It's dead. And when I get this fired back up, I'll show you the code, but I'll show you what I ended up having to do. It's for the seatbelt pretensioner. And the computer doesn't have any power on the seatbelt circuit at all. Basically, underneath here is where all the grounds go. Underneath your seat. And then your airbag. Of course, when you work on the system, you want to always have the ignition off, unclip the airbag, pull the battery off, let it depower for about 30 minutes before you work on the system. But here is a violet and gray wire. And this violet and gray wire inside this connector shell was shorting out because water got in here and it was corroded. The best thing to do would be just cut the wires that are going to it, which are only a few on this side. All these other wires don't matter because they don't go to anything. This is a no option car, but if they did, you would cut those wires each one individually and then wire it in with a spade like this and then heat shrink it. Or what you would do is you would actually order the connector and de-pin everything and then put it back together. And it's really easy to get this connector apart and put it all back together. It's just 4 corners. There's a little lock on this side when you open it up, a lock on this side when you open it up, and then on the back corner down here, and then up here. And then you just slide the insert right out of it, and then there's little tabs down next to the connector. You just literally slide them right out. So there's some corrosion in here and the customer doesn't want to pay for it to get done. So what I ended up having to do is literally cut this wire here. There's a black and blue over here in the corner by my finger, and then there's an open space, and then there's violet and gray, and then if you follow it over to the other side, violet and gray. That's for your seatbelt pretensioner. And basically the computer only sees ground. Whenever you clip your pretensioner in, when you put the seatbelt in, it completes the circuit and sends a signal back saying, okay, we got ground. Well, if you have ground, the computer sees one thing. You undo it, it sees, okay, no ground. So we're open, close, open, close. Well, what this was doing was this was actually shorting out inside this connector shell, and it was putting voltage on the wire that feeds back to the computer, and the computer was seeing voltage when it shouldn't have done that. So I just basically overlaid it from one side of the connector to the other, and that fixed my problem. Okay, so there were 2 codes that I had in the computer. This was a code that I had before, this 2295 EO for the passenger side, and it's a restraint system side airbag fault. It's 2295 EO. And how I figured that out is I went into my data logger up here, and then I went to data logger, and then I pulled up my restraint control module, RCM. Your airbags, they need to be between like 1.2 and 4.3 ohms. I cleared out all this stuff here in the bottom right corner, and I went down to resistances on the passenger side. So, curtain airbag passenger loop number 1. You don't need that, but I just do that anyway. Passenger side impact airbag, that's the front in the dash. This is the passenger pretensioner circuit resistance, the one that we're actually the other one that we fixed while we were down there. And then this one here is your passenger airbag 2 resistance, and this is your tether resistance. And then I hit OK, and when I pulled up the passenger side airbag, where is it? Here, this passenger side impact airbag, it was reading 0.2, 0.3 consistently all the time, and I need at least 2.4, 2.3, 2.1 like the rest of these here. And then down here, I was reading So what I ended up doing is this one here was the code I just showed you, passenger side impact airbag, the OCS classification code or RCM code. This is $22.95. It says restraint system side airbag fault. What I ended up doing is I found there's a connector in the back of the seat. It's called a latching connector. And you could see it right back in there underneath. Underneath the carpet, or underneath the material, right back there, that red connector. It's got a little red tab inside the connector shell that ends up breaking sometimes, or it gets loose. And what it does is it's called a latching connector. So anytime you unplug the airbag, it shorts the circuit back to itself. Well, that little tang that sits inside there wasn't unlatching it, so it was constantly seeing that there was a fault. So what I had to do is I had to pull that red tang out of there, depin the connector, and I ordered a new connector from Ford. The problem we had today was gotta go down more. It's a 2292. It's a passenger side. It cleared and it's not even here anymore. Gosh dang it. But anyway, it was the passenger side seatbelt switch. And basically what it was water got inside this connector down here. This big main connector right here. And I had to follow the wires from the pre-tension, or the switch that's inside here. I had to follow them over to here and actually start checking everything out. So I depowered the system, made sure the key was off, unplugged this so I wasn't messing around with it being plugged in while I was turning the key on and off, and I was testing for power on my circuit. There should be no power with the key on this switch at all, because the computer only looks for ground. If you got power like I did, which was 2.4 volts, you got to overlay that circuit or figure out where your short to power is at, and that was inside this connector. There was a short to power inside here. Once I wired this in, oh, my airbag light actually went off. There's no more airbag.